Good morning. It's Thursday, January 30th. Here's what we're working on this morning. The search for survivors continues this morning after a plane from Kansas crashed into the Potomac River in the U.S.
With just 2 days to go until possible tariffs, Canadian officials are in Washington talking security along the U.S.-Canada border.
And the Leafs don't enjoy a wild time against Minnesota. Good morning. It's Thursday and the last couple of days of January. And this morning, Brian, it was feeling quite cold.
What a difference.
When we woke up.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a difference from yesterday where we were on the plus side.
That's right. Yeah, we were +2 yesterday morning. And this morning, oh no, nowhere near that at all. We're -12 with a wind chill of -14 at the moment. Oh yeah, it's a lot colder than it was yesterday morning. But just wait, the temperature, you would just give it a few hours, the temperature will start to come up nicely, and we're going to hit the plus side once again for the day today. We should hit +1 for today, +2 for tomorrow. Today we'll see some sunshine, but there's chance of some flurries a little later on this afternoon. And then tomorrow, there's chance of rain in the morning, and then we'll get some snow flurry activity later in the day. But at least the winds are fairly low. Southwest at about 3 kilometers an hour, so -12, feeling like -14 right now. It's a cold start. Looking at traffic this morning, there's nothing really to look at. 403 Waterdown Road, that's our exclusive camera, is doing okay at the moment, so nothing to see there. We'll show you just a few MTO traffic cameras. Nikola Tesla Boulevard, very light volume. Toronto-bound lanes heading away from us. Here's east of Brant. That looks pretty good at the moment. We'll flip ahead to east of Burl Oak. Not much happening so far today. Now, there are some slippery roads out there this morning because of that, occasional blast of snow that we had yesterday afternoon. So be careful. The major routes are doing pretty well, though. We'll look at weather and traffic coming up right now at the news.
Thanks, Brian. We begin with a developing story out of Washington, D.C. First responders are continuing their search and rescue efforts after a passenger plane collided with an Army helicopter last night. Simone Gavros joins us live in studio with the latest. Simone.
Kelly, the mid-air crash near Reagan National Airport happened just before 9 p.m. last night. Authorities say a plane carrying 64 people collided with a helicopter carrying 3 soldiers before it went down in the Potomac River. So far, officials say no survivors have been found. Now, the Washington, D.C. Fire and EMS chief explains that some of the challenges complicating the search and rescue efforts right now.
Challenges are access. The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind. There is pieces of ice out there. So it's just dangerous and hard to work in. And because there's not a lot of lights, you're out there searching every square inch of space to see if you can find anybody. Divers are doing the same thing in the water. The water is dark. It is murky. And that is a very tough condition for them to dive in.
Now, this is a live look of the emergency response in the Potomac River this morning. About 300 rescuers have been searching the freezing cold waters overnight. Boats have been launched to scan the waters, and officials say that people can survive in water this cold for about 90 minutes. Now, this photo from Flight Radar 24 shows the path the plane was taking as it prepared to land at Reagan National Airport. American Airlines says the PSA-operated Flight 5342 departed from Wichita, Kansas. Flight Radar shows that the flight left around 5:30 p.m. Central. The U.S. Army says that the helicopter from Virginia was on a training flight. Now, there's been no word of the cause of this collision or how it exactly took place, but the Federal Aviation Administration and the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board have launched an investigation. Prior to the crash, an air traffic controller asked if the helicopter saw the plane. Another radio call was made for the helicopter to pass the plane, and then the aircrafts collided just moments later. Multiple figure skaters were on board the flight, returning from the figure skating championships in Wichita. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump says that he was fully briefed on the crash. He posted on Truth Social just after midnight saying in part, quote, "This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented." Now, Reagan National Airport is closed until at least 11 a.m. today. Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser will be providing another briefing on this crash at 7:30 this morning. And we're going to be bringing you all these updates throughout the program. For now, things back over to you, Annette.
Okay, thanks very much. There's a lot going on with this crash, with this story this morning, so Simone is covering everything for us. Well, U.S. lawmakers say tariffs on Canadian imports could come in two waves, and the first could hit as early as Saturday.
This is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. And as far as I know, they are acting swiftly. And if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be. But it's an action-oriented model. That's not the ordinary tariff. The ordinary tariffs need to be studied and examined, and that will start, as the EO said, in April.
So that's Donald Trump's pick for Commerce Secretary, explaining plans for tariffs at his Senate confirmation hearing yesterday. The new details come as Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mélanie Joly, was in Washington yesterday, meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Earlier this week, Joly had said that she still believes diplomacy can hold off the tariffs.
Canada's public safety minister is pushing back on comments from the incoming U.S. Commerce Secretary that says Canada is allowing fentanyl to cross the border from drug labs run by Mexican cartels. David McGuinty says America's own statistics show just a minuscule amount of fentanyl has been seized at northern border points in the last 12 months, compared to the almost 10,000 kilograms at the southern border. Howard Lutnick said in his confirmation hearings in Washington that U.S. President Trump's threat to impose 25% tariffs on Canada is meant to force Canada to take action at the border. McGuinty says he'll be in Washington for the rest of the week working with the American administration to avoid tariffs.
Meantime, a person who tried to get into Canada illegally from the States by jumping off a freight train in Fort Erie has been arrested. Canada Border Services Agency says the person was found inadmissible to Canada and returned to the United States. Two other people allegedly involved in the smuggling attempt were taken in for questioning. This intercept was part of something called Project Disrupt and Deter. It was launched in December. It monitors vulnerable areas along the International Railway Bridge that connects Fort Erie and Buffalo.
St. Catharines Mayor Matt Cisco and his counterpart in Portage, Indiana, released an open letter to U.S. President Trump saying tariffs would be devastating to cities along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Premier has talked about 500,000 jobs across Ontario. The reality is that in border communities like our own, that percentage, the number of jobs that are dependent on the export market is even higher. And so we know that the brunt is going to be shared in places like Niagara.
The Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative says the region supports over 50 million jobs on both sides of the border and an $8 trillion integrated economy, all of which could be jeopardized by the tariffs.
An Oakville man has been missing since Tuesday night. Halton police say 39-year-old Andrew Wong was last seen walking near Dorval Drive and Old Abbey Lane. Investigators say he is considered vulnerable. He's Asian, 5'5", with a medium build and black hair down to the neck. He may be wearing just a thin blue raincoat.
Hockey Canada is investigating an incident where an under 15-year player in Brantford allegedly threatened to kill a teammate in a social media group chat. The Brantford Minor Hockey Association has acknowledged that it too is investigating the event. The league says in a statement that there was a disturbing string of messages that involves bullying and mentions acts of violence among players that was recently posted to social media. No names have been publicly connected to the incident.
Well, the Minnesota Wild were in Toronto to take on the Leafs last night, with the Wild in control for most of the game.
Those are awfully hard 25 minutes for a guy so young, and he's handled it beautifully. It's fun to watch him in the Four Nations.
Saw that pregame interview with Colby Arms. He scores! There's William Nylander, and the Leafs are on the board.
William Nylander scored his team-leading 29th goal of the season. Not enough, though. The Wild won 3-1. The Leafs have now lost 3 games in a row, and Toronto starts a 4-game road trip Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers. The Wild are heading to Montreal for a game tonight against the Canadiens.
In the PWHL, Marie-Philippe Poulin recorded the hat trick as the Montreal Victoire beat the Ottawa Charge 4-1. She has now 6 goals in her last 5 games. Montreal is now first in the league. Next up for the Victoire is a game tonight versus Toronto. Ottawa plays Toronto on Saturday.
Scotty Barnes led the way for the Toronto Raptors, who are in Washington to play the Wizards.
Think about this. Since 1979, they have not been back to a conference finals. Scotty up top. Pirtle to Barnes.
Scotty Barnes had 24 points as the Raptors beat the Wizards 106-82. So Toronto has now won 5 games in a row. Up next for the Raptors is a 4-game homestand. It kicks off tomorrow night against the Chicago Bulls.
Gilgeous Alexander. They have been all over him in the half court here in the last couple of minutes. He gets that one, 50 points.
Hamilton's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 52 points, but it was Stephen Curry with the late 3-point shot that secured a 116-109 win for his Golden State Warriors over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Toronto's Andrew Wiggins had 27 for Golden State. Oklahoma City heads to home to play Sacramento on Saturday.
It's 11 after 6 o'clock on this Thursday morning, second last day of January, 30th of the month. Let's look at traffic. First of all, that's the 403 right around Waterdown Road. We put that camera up to keep an eye on what's happening on the 403, and there's not a lot going on right now. There's not a lot happening even on our MTO traffic cameras. We go to our QEW camera at Glendale in St. Catharines. Not a lot there. South of 2 off the Skyway Bridge looks good. East of Burloak, all the way through Lorne Park in Mississauga. Even the 403 coming up from the Ford plant there in the distance. That looks pretty good, 403 at Dundas Street. All right, let's get to our temperature. Good news. Hey, the temperature just went up by a degree. It's getting better. It was minus 12. It's now minus 11, but the winds are picking up a bit. They're south at 9. That's making it feel even colder, minus 16. So it's a much colder start to the morning here than we had yesterday. We do have a partly cloudy sky right now. So for school today, we're looking at a +1 high, so we'll climb quite nicely as the day goes on. We'll have a mix of sun and clouds generally for the day today, but we'll get some flurries, a little bit of light snow later in the afternoon. We have an approaching warm front that's going to be going through us to the north, but we also have another low pressure system that's going to bring some rain in the forecast to cap off January tomorrow, and then it's going to cycle into some snow as that cold front goes through later in the day. So today, temperatures on the plus side. We'll get a little bit of flurry activity into the afternoon, but generally a mix of sun and cloud. Temperatures anywhere from +1 to 0 for Mississauga, Milton, and Toronto. Tonight, we just dip into the minus column. So it's actually going to be a fairly mild night, -1 to 0. -3 Guelph and Kitchener, just a bit of cloud cover. And then tomorrow we climb even further, +2 and 3 degrees for the day. Now we will get some rain shower activity in the morning, and then as the temperature cools off during the afternoon, we could get some snow, and that could mean a couple of centimeters later in the day. So yep, 30th morning of January, partly cloudy. It is cold this morning, a lot colder than yesterday. Be prepared, -11 and a wind chill of -16. And we'll check the long-range forecast coming up. Annette, Kelly.
Thanks, Brian. Coming up after the break, we'll say good morning to Louis Butko with a preview of what's to come in Chit Chat. And the central banks in Canada and the U.S. have announced their latest interest rate decisions. We'll see how it impacted North American stocks in 2. Welcome back. Let's say good morning to Louis Butko. Hey, Louis, what do you have coming up in Chit Chat?
Well, another day, another new Super Bowl commercial to show you. What else we got? We got a reboot of a classic 70s series that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. And it is National Croissant Day. So we'll be talking about, not to put you on the spot, but some of the best places to pick up some croissants. So if you got some favorites, let me know.
We'll have to think about it.
Yeah, think about it.
All right.
Are you making any for us?
No, I don't have the time because you got to do, what's it called? The layering you got to do, or the laminating,
The butter
I think.
and the rolling.
Yeah, all that stuff. Now I'm hungry just thinking about it, though. So we'll be talking croissants later on Chit Chat.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Louie. All right. Taking a look at the markets. The Canadian dollar is up 3 basis points to 69.39 cents U.S. Gold gained $18 to 10 cents an ounce. And crude is down 32 cents to $72.30 a barrel. In midday European trading, markets are up across the board in London, Frankfurt, and Paris.
In Asia, the Tokyo Stock Exchange gained nearly 100 points today. Markets in Hong Kong and Shanghai closed for the Lunar New Year holiday. And following the announcement on interest rates decisions on both sides of the border, yesterday, the TSX was up 53 points, the Dow was down 136, and the Nasdaq dropped just over 100 points.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has left its key interest rate unchanged following 3 cuts last year. The Fed's decision yesterday reflects concerns over inflation, which is above 3% annually. The central bank wants it to be at 2%. Officials have indicated that a strong U.S. economy with low unemployment and healthy growth suggests they can comfortably hold off on cutting rates while waiting for inflation to slow further. This comes as U.S. President Trump told business leaders he would demand the central bank to lower rates. Here's Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell.
Students of all that, and we have our. I'm not going to have any response or comment whatsoever on what the president said. It's not appropriate for me to do so. The public should be confident that we will continue to do our work as we always have, focusing on using our tools to achieve our goals and really keeping our heads down and doing our work, and that's how we best serve the public. Bringing inflation back.
Powell was first appointed as Federal Reserve Chair by Trump in 2018 and is now serving his second term, which runs until May 15th, 2026.
Now, the Bank of Canada, meantime, has lowered its key interest rate by 0.25 percentage point to 3%. This is the 6th interest rate cut in this country in a row, and it comes ahead of threatened U.S. tariffs. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem says our country's economic outlook is clouded by the uncertainty because of that threat. The bank has dropped its gross domestic product growth forecast by 1.8% for this year and next. That is down from previous projections of 2.1% and 2.3%.
Tesla missed its earnings estimate for the last quarter of 2024 amid weak sales and revenue. The automaker had already said it had its first annual sales drop in its history last year, but the company's quarterly revenue was about $1.5 billion less than expected. The earnings miss comes as Tesla faces increased competition from other electric vehicle automakers in the U.S., China, and Europe. Tesla did not release a sales target for 2025, but expects sales to rebound. Meanwhile, the company plans to raise prices on its vehicles in Canada by up to $9,000 starting Saturday, which is also when U.S. President Trump plans to impose widespread tariffs against Canada.
Starbucks is scaling down its menu. The coffee giant is cutting about 30% of its drink and food items to simplify orders and speed up service. CEO Brian Nichols said in an earnings call this week it's also part of his plan to make Starbucks more profitable. It is unclear what items will be taken off the menu in the next few months, but Starbucks has already stopped selling its line of olive oil drinks and iced energy drinks. The company's quarterly earnings and revenue beat Wall Street expectations, and that sent shares of Starbucks up 8% yesterday.
Spotify says it paid $10 billion to the music industry last year. That's $1 billion more than the streaming service paid out the previous year. It brings the grand total up to $60 billion since Spotify started in 2006. One caveat is artists don't necessarily see all of that money. Spotify pays music rights holders, which are usually record labels and publishers. It's up to them to then distribute money to their musicians and songwriters. The company also points out that before streaming started, illegal downloading of music was rampant.
Okay, taking a quick break right now. Brian is going to be back with your traffic and your 7-day forecast. Bundle up, but also bring an umbrella. It's confusing.
All right. right, coming up on 624 on this Thursday morning, let's check traffic here this morning and doing okay in most of the major routes. Not a lot happening. QEW at Martindale is doing fine in both directions. Same with Nikola Tesla Boulevard. We'll flip over to the other side of the Skyway going through Burlington, east of Brant Street. Toronto-bound lanes coming towards us on that. Same here at the Ford plant. Look how light volume that is. Even at Dixie Road, Toronto-bound towards us on that camera. No, there's not a lot going on in the roads this morning, but be really careful. Some of the outlying roads, the secondary roads, could be slippery because of the blowing snow that we had yesterday. All right, let's check the temperature. Good news is this morning the temperature has gone up by a degree from what it was last hour. We are now sitting at -11. Factor in the winds, still fairly light, but it feels like -16, so a lot colder this morning than it was yesterday morning. -8 Grimsby, -7 Mississauga and Toronto. So seasonal temperatures for an overnight low are -10, for a daytime high -2. We're going to beat that today later on. Sun times and records right there. And for school today, by the first bell this morning at 9 should be about -5, so temperature will come up. We'll have some sun and clouds, and then maybe some light flurry activity, some light snow after school, and we'll climb to the plus side. So +1 today, -1 tonight. So the temperature doesn't fall too far. Bit of a wind chill, but not by much. And then tomorrow, 2 degrees. It'll climb to, we'll get maybe some rain in the morning, and then as the temperature dips, we could get some couple of centimeters of snow later in the day. And then cold again for Saturday, sunny -6. Then it goes up again, +4 for Groundhog Day, mixing precipitation again on Monday and 3, and then -4 as we get into Tuesday. That's your forecast. Kelly, Annette.
Thanks, Brian. CHCH is asking for your opinion. Our audience survey is back.
So we did this last spring, and 10,000 people completed the survey and provided us with lots of great ideas. This time the survey is diving a little bit deeper with new questions and fresh ideas. When you finish the survey, you'll be entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card. You have until Sunday to complete it. Head to chch.com/survey or just scan the QR code that you see on your screen. Okay, there's a new member of the royal family.
Buckingham Palace has announced the birth of a baby girl for Princess Beatrice and her husband Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. Beatrice is the oldest daughter of Prince Andrew, King Charles's younger brother, and Sarah Ferguson. Athena Elizabeth Rose Mapelli Mozzi was born January 22nd. She's the couple's second daughter. Her middle name is a tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth. Baby Athena weighed just over 4 pounds at birth and wasn't due until early spring. But the palace says both mom and baby are healthy and doing well. It's always such a big deal, when they come out of the hospital holding their baby.
She is 11th in line to the throne.
I don't think she'll ever get there, but
it's important to be in that line.
Yeah.
Important to be in that line. Okay, 6:27 right now. We've got lots more to come, including the latest on that tragic midair collision in Washington, D.C.